Hey Eric, how are you doing?
Good, good man. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great today. This weekend actually was quite fun. If as everyone don't know, we right now record on Sunday night my time, like it's 9:30 p.m. and it's 4:30 your time or 5:30,
3:30.
3:30.
Daylight savings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the weekend is over for me and almost over for Eric as well. Um, we've been spending a lot of time today with my son. We went to Dino World exhibition. Like everyone was wearing masks and everyone was keeping distance. It was very nice. Finally, Dutch people started to wear more masks. Before it was like no one was wearing it until government said it's recommended to wear them. So finally at least something good changes. And in Dino World there was very nice animatronics with dinos and so on. So for him it was a lot of fun.
I'd like to go to Dino World. That sounds fun.
And it's actually was kind of an exhibition. So in large exhibition centers they set it up for a few weeks, and you have to register in advance, choose the time, so they have a time limit
Time
of
tickets. Yeah.
people who can enter in. So there is not more than particular number of people. Every single dino has like two areas where you have to stand near them, and they have like 3 meters apart distance, so it's more than 6 feet. And yeah, so they took a lot of precautions, and it was very nice.
Awesome. Sounds fun.
Yeah, because like with all these lockdowns and so on, it's very hard to get some kind of entertainment for a son. Like he's only 2.5 years old, and when you're locked in, you cannot go to the usual places where he can steam off his energy, because he's so active right now. Like he wants to play, he wants to jump, he wants to clean something, like do a lot of stuff. And this is one of the ways we were able to do it, because over there was even some bouncy castles, so he could jump over there and have some fun.
I
Because
like bounce castles too, man. Bounce castles and dinosaurs. That sounds fun. You should
yeah.
take me next time.
Okay. I think Jordan can add something into the background.
Yeah. That sounds like a good time.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and then we also got some used. I don't know how you call it in English. In Netherlands, they call it steps. So it's something that you have. I think it's called scooter or something like that. Like when
Oh, scooters. Yeah. Like one foot on, the other foot's pushing it.
yeah,
Yeah, man. Kids everywhere.
yeah, but we got an adult one. So today I was driving with him, and it was a lot of fun as well. So we were having a lot of outdoor time. Like this weekend, it was amazing for me, like to spend whole weekend with him. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, apart from that, I did some progress as well on my MSI component rewrite. So I don't remember, probably I mentioned last show that I was working with one of the customers on MSI microservice to do deductions. But after I finished that project, I decided I want to completely rewrite it from scratch and make it completely multi-threaded, because right now it was just single thread to process deductions and so on. And
In Rust,
yes,
is multi-threading much easier in Rust because it compiles. You get a lot of errors out of the way.
yeah,
I
there's
haven't used Rust, but I see you talking about it a lot.
there's a lot of interesting stuff actually, because the Rust community is very welcoming. And like I just posted a question in Discord channel in a Rust community, and someone comes up with an answer right away, because they had the same issue before, and they explained to me like what is the difference between the lifetime, why I'm using this data type instead of something that they think is more better for me, because for instance I was creating a lot of strings, and a lot of strings actually allocate memory every time you copy them. But in the end, my software was never needing actually strings to be created, because strings are mutable. So it means you can have a string, let's say of SKU or source code of Magento internal storage, like like SKU of a product and source code for knowing where to deduct the stock. And we were talking a lot with them about a specific issue I have, and in the end, like, because I receive this data from somewhere, it doesn't make for me sense to have a string being allocated, because string is created to be mutable. So I had to create just some atomic reference counter that wraps a string slice. So it's never creating string on myself, it just reuses the same data as I was using on a protocol. So let's say I received something from TCP socket, I just get this data in the same memory location and just take ownership of it, instead of copying over all this data into my own memory storage. And then when I need to use it, I need to copy all this data again and again and again and again. And instead of that, I just use this nice concept that exists in Rust. If you have immutable data. So if you have mutable data, it doesn't work, because if oh, sorry, I don't hear you anymore.
Oh, I'm here.
It's noise canceling probably on your side, right?
Maybe. I'm not sure if I still have my noise gate on. I mean, that's a good thing if it's that quiet in here. My door and my window's open, so if it's that quiet.
Yeah, I just heard complete silence, and I thought like, wow.
more issues.
Yeah,
more Zoom
because
issues.
like I was having issues on Linux with the sound, so I thought, is it also on Windows? Like, what's going on? So yeah, those atomic reference counters are kind of interesting, because like you don't copy the data itself, you just copy the reference to it, and it creates a multi-threaded counter that is atomic. It's using native CPU operations in order to add additional count to the number of references. And when there is no like when the count reaches 0, when everyone drops a reference, the data gets deallocated. So it's kind of a smart solution, and I've did some benchmarks also with comparing it to strings, because strings are usually considered quite good in Rust. But because I'm actually not using Rust to mutate the data for a string, I just use a string as unique key that I just share all over the place. It's much more better for me just to use immutable structure like that. And I rewrote all that part, and now I'm rewriting the database saving part, and it's gonna be kind of interesting to see, because I was shaking my original implementation with single thread, and because I was relying a lot on MySQL, and like the application itself, if everything is loaded, was able to process thousands of requests concurrently. But as soon as like I encounter some unknown SKU or unknown source, I need to contact database and ask database, hey, can you load this data for me? And so
is this the project? Is this the same project we linked our last episode in the show notes?
No, this is not importer. So it's just.
Oh, that was importer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
many projects, man. I'm losing track. I don't know how you find the time to do everything.
Oh, it's crazy. But this is a customer project, and I also did some live streams on it. So on the refactoring part,
okay.
I don't open source it. So I just provide it as an educational material for someone who wants also,
You're just teasing everybody, teasing all the viewers.
It's not something, like, I don't think like I can really open source it, because first of all, like,
yeah,
it doesn't make sense for me to give a specific very enterprise grade application, because in general it's nice to have something written in Rust being open source. Like I write a lot of stuff in Rust. I wrote actually 2 projects already in Rust that are open source. But I consider MSI one is something that needs to be also connected to custom modules as well and so on. So it's a good revenue stream for me. So
Have you seen the MSI local pickup that's new in 2.4.1? Seems useful in times of COVID-19 when you can't, stores are like physical stores are struggling for sales, and local pickup, curbside stuff.
Yeah, the standard Magento MSI has some huge issue. Let's say, and we actually run out when I was implementing this microservice for them. When I was looking for Magento code, and I implemented my own functionality where I just create reservations, and Magento just takes those reservations into account everywhere. So there's a huge issue with that. In Magento, you can assign sources to multiple stocks. So you can have, let's say, source Amsterdam, and you can have source New York being assigned to a global stock. You can have a US stock, and you can have European stock. And global stock you use, like to sell items from all over the world, right? Except United States and, let's say, Europe. So all the other countries are selling over there. The issue, if you place an order in global stock, in European stock, and in US stock, it will create a reservation linked only to stock. It doesn't create a reservation linked to source item. So you can have a warehouse in United States and in Amsterdam, but the reservations, it's a problem with the system design itself, with MSI design, because MSI is designed in such a way, and you cannot change anything about it in the core, because it would be a huge breaking change in point of view of the data relation. And the issue with that you have this stock itself, and the stock, if you place an order and the order is not yet shipped, the other stock doesn't know about that order at all. So the global stock shows you have, let's say, 70 products in stock, because 30 has been purchased in global stock, but the European stock still sees 100. And when you place an order, Magento will just oversell your items. This does not happen when you have per each warehouse, when you have the same source as stock itself. So if you have a US stock with US warehouse and it's only sells in US, right? Or you have European warehouse and it's only sells in Europe. But if you have interconnected system where you have products being spread around, and for this customer this was the case, they have 2 warehouses, one in Europe and one in United States, and if the item is not available in US warehouse, they want to ship it from European one in order, to supply customers the product that they want, because they have shared inventory globally, but the local location of the product is in different places. But they also want to sell, for instance, they don't want to send something from United States to Europe, because it's inconvenient for them, because they have bigger warehouse here. So United States warehouse doesn't have all the products, but they sell it, and they need to have a reliable quantity available. And when we find out about this issue, it's good that we went live with this functionality with microservice. The microservice itself was using from the beginning a separate way to calculate one available quantity. But Magento was still showing in the admin panel everywhere on the front end, the stock status was still showing data as the product was still available. However, it was sold out, and if you add to cart and press proceed to checkout and place order, it will show you that this product is not in stock. However, Magento thinks it's in.
So that would be the same problem then if you have multiple physical retail locations and you were using it for local pickup. You could oversell what was in one physical store.
Yeah, the problem is as soon as you have sources being shared between different stocks, then you have a problem. As soon as the source is only assigned to one stock, it's okay. But system allows you to assign source to multiple stocks. Like you don't need to have, like one warehouse being only exclusively assigned to one sales channel. That's the idea of MSI, is that you have separation of the warehouses from your sales channels, right? So you don't need to worry about that one. And yeah, it was interesting to encounter it and find out that this behavior is already was failure proof. Like people were not overbuying products, but still the user experience was not great because of this issue in MSI itself. So I then created another entity for them. So what actually I was doing, it was kind of interesting because right now in a source item, we only have one quantity, and I created another entity. I called it source item aggregate. And when I place an order, I actually decide at the order placement time from which warehouse this item is going to be shipped. But Magento doesn't decide on it until you have actually the item shipped.
Is that something that's going to be fixed in future versions of MSI, or how are people handling it
I don't have any idea because it was ad hoc solution for the customer. I didn't talk with anyone, but maybe someone will watch for Magento as they show and they say, hey, we have this bug in MSI and so on. But given my previous,
seems like a pretty important bug.
Yeah, but like it's something that people probably, it makes sense to open a bug report for it. You're right, or check if there's a bug report already for it.
Yeah,
but
I'd be surprised there isn't one already for that. It seems like a big issue.
I think there's not a lot of people who use MSI to the full extent yet. A lot of people, for instance, these customers, they were using before MSI, they were using a Masti solution before 2.3 upgrade. So there was on 2.2, and then they decided to upgrade to 2.3, but they decided, hey, we want actually to have standard core functionality in, because it's already available, like multi-source location. So I've set up from scratch. I imported all the data from a Masti module they was running and so on. It was kind of interesting project, and given that they were keen to develop this Rust microservice in order to make sure that they have accurate stock quantity on every single purchase, it was very nice exercise to build such a solution in Rust. And so far they don't have any complaints. So this is great. The server never died yet, so that's a good on Rust itself as a language. And I just gonna use Rust more and more. Also recently I ran a Twitter poll on some of the issues with Redis in Magento. This is an interesting one as well. Like all the caching solutions right now in Magento, they usually do some workarounds internally, because there is no solution out there yet that can allow you to create cache entries that are tagged and can be easily cleaned up by those tags. So in Redis, it's implemented in such a way, like you have a hash map and you just set the cache content in one part of the hash map and tags into another part of the hash map. And then you have another entry with all the records assigned to a tag, and then when you create or update something, you have to update multiple records in a Redis database. So this is kind of very heavy on the Redis server itself, because you don't have just to update a Redis single Redis entry and they say, hey, can you clear all the entries that match this criteria, right? Because Redis doesn't have this functionality itself, because it's built just as in-memory database. It's not built as a caching solution itself. So given my experience with Rust, I decided it makes sense actually to build something in Rust that's gonna be much more better cache storage for Magento than Redis, and build actually the cache storage that's specifically built for Magento itself. And I had really nice ideas, so I ran this Twitter poll and to see, like what people are thinking about it and so on. And yeah.
I did see that. I was gonna say, this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Was somebody else working on it? No, that was you. That was your Twitter poll.
Yeah, so this Twitter poll showed that like 50% more people are interested in actually having such a service, and majority of the people actually in the poll just wanted to see the numbers, as always.
Just show me the numbers. Well, good thing you did that, because a lot of people don't put the just show me the results, and then they get skewed because people just want to see the results. So
this is I think very important to have, because like if you have yes or no, like you don't want to have someone just vote at like skew the decisions that you want to do. So I was thinking about that, and I actually have now a plan for another project in Rust where I will have a completely in-memory database with indexes and like internal structures of the cache tags. So when you store a cache entry from Magento, it's gonna be a single IO call with all the data you need. So basically there's gonna be no such thing as half-written cache as it exists right now. So why Magento right now needs to lock cache writes operations, because they have to write multiple records into the cache and storage in order to be able to clean it up later on by those multiple records. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna create a possibility to just have completely atomic cache operations. So hey, I'm gonna load this cache entry, I'm gonna store this cache entry, and another thing I want to do as well, I want to make this cache application being automatically replicated across a cluster. So you would just have a gossip network being created. So there will be possibility to connect multiple resolvers of the nodes in the cluster, and every 1 second as they will communicate with each other with 3 nodes in a cluster, other 3 nodes in a cluster, and we'll share all the events that happened during that time, and each of them will synchronize to the most recent state. So in such a way, like you will just have local storage on the same node that is going to use as low memory as possible on a system, because it's going to be also optimized for specifics of Magento cache as well. So there's going to be lower footprint in that area, and because like cache tags can be then just simplified to simple binary masks, because like if it's a product cache tag, I can just store product ID or something like that and just rely on it internally without thinking.
Is that going to be open source?
Yes, this is definitely going to be open source, because it doesn't make sense to make this one proprietary.
Who would be interested in that? Like, who would that benefit the most?
I think it will benefit everyone. Like not only Magento, but general applications that rely on some kind of partially cleanable cache. So the biggest thing with applications, like when you build an application and you wanna flush a cache, you need either to flush all the cache, or you need to have a sophisticated solution where you flash only records that are affected, right, by your change. And majority of the situations, like people just write this logic in an application by introducing those cache tags, store them as separate entries on the cache storage, and so on. And yeah, having something like that would benefit not only Magento.
In Rust, you'd write that in Rust?
Yes, of course in Rust, not in PHP. Because
do you think a lot of people are going to start installing Rust? Like, what would you do? We'd make that as a Docker container that they could.
Yeah, the nice thing about Rust, it's actually compiled into the static binary. So like you compile everything and it's a single binary without any library dependencies. So it's like Go applications, like Go is statically linked. So when you compile it, it actually links all the libraries internally into the binary. So you don't need, the only place where you need to install some C library or something is your development machine. And then it gets compiled into the one binary. Yeah, the binary size is bigger, but it's much more better from point of view of portability. So you just distribute this binary, and when you build a Docker image, you just take the source code, and you do Docker build, and it compiles the binary for this specific architecture, and that's all. You have a ready container that can just start and run itself. But what I was thinking...
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah?
How would you... I'm thinking from a hosting provider's perspective, like to run that on Stratus, we have to make another container for a customer, or at a competitor's hosting service where they do like a managed cloud service, they charge extra for containers too, so you can't install like your own services. So this would be like a dedicated server where you would install it yourself.
I prefer to have it on every single FPM node itself. So you can establish a UDS socket right away instead of running a TCP connection, because TCP connections, they are valuable, like you want to spend them on external connections. But internally, like if it's on the same CPU as your FPM process, it's just a small piece of memory that gets dedicated to cache, and it gets synchronized through with other processes with other nodes. So
like on Stratus, we scale out multiple PHP FPMs horizontally. It's a pod. We could put another container in there for the Rust service.
Yeah, or
and it would scale out.
Or just run it in the FPM itself. Like you can just add it to the FPM container.
It's interesting.
I use Rust a lot with customers, and majority of the customers use supervisor. And supervisor allows to, like create such kind of processes that just continuously run, and if they stop, like it just restarts them. And what's great about Rust in this case, because with MSI service and with this caching service, there is no state. So MSI service connects to existing Magento database and stores the data into Magento database. And cache service is just in memory cache. So if it dies for some reason, like it just restarts it and you have clear storage, so it just regenerate a cache from scratch. I also was thinking about the same thing. We were talking before recording, right? We were talking about security issues and about the security idea with Rust service as well. It's also read-only, so you have some kind of a Rust application that generates a binary file with all those password hashes, stores them in this binary format that is much more smaller than text hash format, because like in binary it's much more compact. And then you have this thing with, let me remember. Oh, and then you just load this binary file together with a binary file with index, with the locations in a binary file of all the hashes itself that match particular pattern, and you have immutable service. So as soon as your data is immutable itself, like you can create such kind of services that can easily scale without any issues. So.
You're so quiet, man. You got this new mic. I'm falling asleep a little bit. Your voice is so soothing and so calming. I'm just like, Rust, microservices, crashing. It sounds good though. Voice is like really deep with it. Speaking of security, have you seen the CAPTCHA in the checkout to prevent carding?
I hate it.
That's too. Yeah, it seems to be pretty polarizing, man.
I can understand like you wanna have some kind of capture thing, but you shouldn't like just enable it for everyone, you know. Like I think there is something like invisible captcha for people.
I wasn't sure if it was invisible or not. I don't know. The stuff I saw, it was showing just a really ugly, horrible, like homegrown captcha.
Yeah, so
like ugly looking. Surely it's invisible though. Yeah.
So if it's invisible captcha,
I got blocked. I got blocked on an invisible captcha a couple months ago. I couldn't prove my identity. Different browser, changed my IP, my ISP. Yeah. I had to wait like 2 days before it cleared. So I don't know. The rate limits we've been using have worked well in Nginx, and I heard other people using Cloudflare. I haven't had any false positives. I think if people are having false positives, they're probably need to look at the rates and the limits that they're setting. Or maybe just
I think the most important thing, you know, like if someone is testing out credit card numbers, it's good to have a 3D, you know, like some kind of fraud detection system running on your store.
Yeah, there was a couple companies doing that. Oh, NS8 was the one doing that, but they're like, that's an SEC investigation.
I remember that one with our recent episode, yeah.
But Bolt, or not Bolt, Fast, the new Fast checkout, those guys were talking about, if you're using Fast checkout, you don't have to worry about that. We handle it or whatever.
Also, I think Mark, I forgot Mark Schust. Yeah.
Schust, yeah.
He was stepping on this one, and he was talking about fraud detection machine learning service from Amazon that is available as well. Like you can.
Oh, yeah. Someone just sent me a note on that. They're like, that just detects if the. What did they say? The Amazon service tells you what's fraudulent, but it doesn't stop a bot from running through thousands of card numbers. The Amazon service. Someone tried to use it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. So how can we?
It just scores it. You can still. Yeah, that's the difference. It scores it, and that's what the other people were doing too, like NS8 and the other Signify D. They just score it. Like they don't block it or prevent it. They just give you a score, and then you decide what to do with it. So that's not going to help.
Yeah, you still have to configure it right, but yeah, the main issue is that
it still tries. It still tries the card. It doesn't stop it. It just scores it. So
yeah, but we need just to react to it, right? Because
that's true.
If we stop every single possibility of this happening, we cannot prevent it. Really, it's better to have measures to analyze the data, make sure you know that the address information is matching the customer itself, so we can make a proper decision.
This is probably worse in the US because we're really horrible with credit cards and security. Like I remember Alex, he came over from Ukraine in like 2013. he couldn't believe I didn't have a chip in my credit cards. He's like, what do you mean you don't have a chip in your credit cards? What? How does it not get stolen tomorrow? Like, and then we got chips when everybody else was getting contactless. We're so far behind. And wire transfers and transferring money, like we're just starting to really do transfers of money between banks. It's so there's no 3D secure.
So
some of my cards have that where like it'll take you to the Visa, verified by Visa or verified by MasterCard. As an American, I hate it. It's super annoying thing. I don't enable it on any of my stuff, so that's not going to really help people here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna annoy your American thing here. Here, it's very popular. Just like to create a QR code with your banking app to someone. You went to dinner with someone and you want them to pay you. Like you don't have separate app for it. It's available right away in all of your banking apps, and it's right away on your bank account.
It's right away. Like that's I can like I'm just now in my banking, like major banks like Chase and Bank of America. Like I'm just now seeing transfer services, and it's like it costs me $3 to send something 3 days or $10 to send something next business day. It's crazy. Like
here it's much more better. Like I pay an amount. I think like €3 a quarter or something like that for my bank account. So it's almost nothing. And it already contains, like if I transfer, within my bank itself, like it's instantaneous, and if it's within the Netherlands, it's within 1 day. And if in Europe, usually it's like 2-3 days maximum to another country. But it should be in European IBAN system, so to get it processed this fast. But in general, I think I only get charged if I send it somewhere into another country. So if, for instance, I send money to Germany, I have to decide how do I want to share the cost of the bank transfer, and usually it's not much. But
so you're against the CAPTCHA and the checkout then?
Yes, I think like for Europe, it's completely useless because over here, like people are not comfortable entering their credit card number on the vendor not on the merchant website. So people are used here more to the solutions like ADN, where you get redirected to the third-party service that is not a merchant. So you are sure, like that you are entering data somewhere else. Also, like in the Netherlands, credit card is a very rare occasion. Like everyone has. I don't know if I have it with me. I think I have it, yeah. So everyone has this kind of passes, right?
Well, it looks like a credit card.
Yeah, it looks like a credit card. It has a chip on it, but it's not a credit card. Over here, I don't show it on the recording, but here it just has a bank number and till which time this card itself is valid. So bank account number is on my card. It's not the credit card number.
Wait, so that would be like our version of a debit card?
Yeah, but
I think.
But on a debit card, you still have a credit card number, right? Well, like you still have a card number itself.
Yeah, we still have a card number.
And here it's just bank account number, so you don't have anything like they have Maestro, Visa. Like Maestro, it's MasterCard in Europe, and Visa has this VPay. So VPay is just an integration into the global system, but internally, like it's just a bank account number. So internally, if you pay in the Netherlands, every merchant has this solution installed because it's much more cheaper than installing in proper card accepting service.
Yeah, it sounds like what we call our ATM network. So our ATM network uses, if you use the debit, so like some of our cards will be debit or credit, and you can run it either debit or credit, and the merchants prefer debit because that goes directly to the bank over the ATM network.
Yeah, so this is definitely, yeah, it's actually mentions here on the back debit.
Yeah, yeah, that's your version of that.
Yeah, so it's debit card, but no one almost uses here credit cards because it's much more simpler, and you have to pay more for credit card itself. Like, you don't receive any benefits. There is no cashbacks here. Like, people.
Oh yeah, we get cash back. We get extended warranties.
Because they want people to be hooked on a credit. Like.
Yeah. Well, also it doesn't hit your bank account right away. You get a statement and you can pay it later. I mean, if you pay it right away, if you pay it before the statement date, then you don't get charged any fees for it. But if it's stolen and it's a fraudulent charge, credit card companies here are pretty good about like disputing transactions and collecting information and deciding in the favor of the card holder. So it's like a protection. It's a buffer. I would call it a buffer here in protection for us.
Yeah, the only part where I have issues with, so if I didn't have any credit card on me, like, and if I go into another country over there, yeah, then I have an issue. Like, if I go outside of European Union, I would say, because everywhere in European Union, this card works without any issues. Like, I can go into grocery store, I can go anywhere, and I just pay as a regular, like with a regular credit card. So even through
up until recently, there were things we couldn't do with our debit cards. Like you couldn't rent a car, you couldn't rent a hotel room. Like you actually had to have a real credit card to do those things. But I think pretty much everywhere else it worked. Like the debit card would work.
Yeah. So here as well, like you can rent a car with this card, but it actually reserves real money as a deposit, like this is inconvenient. So that's why, like, if I want to rent a car, I prefer to have a credit card, but it's only if I want to rent a car. Like from the other points of view, like if I want to book a hotel room, no issues at all. Like booking.com, they are based in Amsterdam, and their system supports local Dutch payment method called iDeal, so you can pay directly from your bank account for the hotel you want to stay in. And most of the Dutch hotels, they accept these cards without any issues. So this is kind of yeah. If I go to United States, like, I can only use this card in ATM. So in ATM in United States, this one works as well. However, there is terrible exchange rates, so I usually prefer to buy cash before I depart to United States and do it. Like, yeah, before I depart to United States. I haven't been in the United States for a year already. Intro time.
Loading a Loop, sponsored by Blackfire.io. I'm Eric Hileman, CEO and co-founder of Magento Hosting in New York City. The purpose of this program is to take some of what we've learned from over 10 years of Magento-specific hosting and evaluate one of our customers' stores. We'll share with you what we find in hopes that it may help improve your Magento skills and the performance of your Magento stores. Along with me on this trip is my co-host Ivan.
Hey, Captain. Thanks for having me on this trip. And my name is Ivan. I'm a Magento performance consultant from the Netherlands. I work with merchants big and small, and I like Magento and everything related to Magento and Rust.
And Rust.
Yeah, so Eric, tell us a little bit about the customer we are going to review today.
Mexican footwear, fine footwear. Been a customer with us for, 8 years, maybe longer. Yeah, we've been doing this for over a decade now, and they've been with us since the very beginning. So they must be selling some high quality Mexican footwear. Have you seen these boots? These boots look really cool.
Yeah.
Not really my style, but very cool.
Also, when we last time been to Mexico with my wife, she also bought some very nice shoes in Mexico. Like, those were expensive, but those were high quality itself. So I think there's a lot of potential in Mexican clothing and show industry actually to
Good craftsmanship.
Yeah, to actually get into international market, because they have some nice quality things. So let's profile the homepage of their store, right? So today I'm profiling in Windows, and this is Microsoft Edge based on Chromium. So it just to let you know that, yeah, I didn't install any additional browser since I installed Windows. And today I'm recording on Windows because something is wrong with audio on my Linux install. Okay, so we have some results coming in for our homepage. Homepage, okay. So, looks kind of good. Not much things going on, but there is big but. You see here? There is something going on, like from the point of view of the queries it was looking fine, but then I saw this one, a number of HTTP calls, like 14 requests, like why? The queries are not a problem, but here right away in the timeline I see a lazy load of images through page speed image optimizer that actually kills your file system with those file get contents calls, and consumes all of your RAM on a server by, you know, like loading the whole image file just to retrieve the size of the image.
And if you're using auto scaling here, that's going over NFS because we've got to share the media.
Yeah, so yeah, this is a huge issue.
That's another one of those page speed extensions. So people are like, I got to get my page speed cores up because I want better search engine results. So let me install this extension.
Yeah.
And like,
it
does this real time every page request instead of a nice build compilation process.
Yeah. So again, Magepack. Use Magepack.
Magepack.
Yeah. So this is something that they need to use instead of this extension, because Magepack is actually not doing this kind of IO calls. It just does it during the build process. You have combined configuration, and if you need to use lazy loading, there is a bunch of JavaScript libraries available over there that are under 3 kilobytes that you can just load at a CSS style or a CSS class to the element of the image, and you are done. Like all your images are lazy loaded. So yeah, this is, I think, like it takes 50% of the page load time. And I think in production system, if we don't have, you know, hooks for seeing which methods are invoked, this one is going to be even bigger because the pure IO time is quite large here. So pure IO time and memory allocation, this is just terrible. Like,
yeah, we'll see that if somebody gets traffic and they get hit and their site slows down, even though they're auto scaled, we'll see a lot of high IO weight, and they'll be going over NFS for needless image manipulation. And
yeah, so let's take a look now at HTTP, because I don't see this HTTP calls as a huge overhead in the timeline, but this is quite a large one. Oh, wait a second. Is it?
Oh, wow. What? A file get contents from the WYSIWYG and over an admin URL?
Yeah. Like, so,
okay, that's new.
So this is quite great. And I will explain why. First of all, like, it's happening through the external interface, like you are connecting through HTTPS. It's never gonna be cached by internal server, because it needs to negotiate, you know, like secure connection and everything, and it happens probably at CloudFront side of things. So you never hit your local file system. This is just
That actually, yeah, that goes out. That goes all the way out and back in through CloudFront.
yeah. So this is terrible. And
What is that? What image is that? That's a cat outlet.
it looks like
Huh.
it's some kind of banners on the homepage, like those ones.
Yeah, is that
So they just try to find the size of the image in order to put it into the image tags. But
what code extension is that? What namespace is it coming from?
This is I think we've seen before Swissup.
Swiss. Oh, that's still the Swissup thing.
Yeah,
Wow,
I think we've seen this
bad.
before. And also
get rid of Swissup.
yeah, also there is some kind of HTML optimizer that is completely useless when you have HTTP2 enabled, and I think you have it enabled, right?
Yeah.
And if you have broadly encoding enabled as well, like doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to minify HTML because the only thing it does, it obscures your representation. I think there was some research being done that like there's very minuscule performance gain by minifying HTML, but it introduces a lot of latency on a server side because you need to spend time actually to minify HTML.
Yeah,
Compression is much more better on a server side through the actual web server that responds to the request. But doing it in
because we gzip, like if you're why bother compressing if you're or minification if you're gzipping, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Like for some files it makes sense, like for instance for JavaScript, because for JavaScript compression doesn't minification doesn't just remove white spaces, like and this kind of stuff. But for JavaScript, like minification actually reduces the variable sizes, like and a lot of stuff. But for HTML, minification doesn't help at all because your HTML is still gonna be the same HTML just without white spaces. That's the only difference. And it also, like when the HTML is minified, you need to also to take into account that sometimes when parsers are parsing the documents, they have also buffers, and if the buffer is implemented in such a way that it reads a file line by line, you might run into issues with allocating additional buffer size if it's all in one line, because usually minification just removes all new lines at all.
Oh.
So that can be also a problem. Okay, so let's go into category page and let's profile it. So they probably use a master shop by, right?
Probably. Seems like that's, I think 30% of our Magento store owners are using that at this point, or more. Which is probably why Magento, well, not probably why, but one of the reasons why Magento 2 gets bad performance reputation.
There are some legitimate things, like that are issues with Magento itself. Okay, so here we see quite a lot of database requests, not too much, but the latency of the queries are quite high. And I think latency is related to those category functionality. Yeah, so from point of view of the standard Magento, I think it's standard load and loop in prices. So something that happens all the time. And I think someone finally created a GitHub issue, and they're working on fix finally on it, on price indexes. But I think they're working on it for a year already, but nothing has landed yet. So someone created an issue that if you have a configurable product, Magento doesn't use prices from the price index, something that we mention in every show. So here we see that they're using Elasticsearch, but like it looks like the standard Elasticsearch. It doesn't look like Elasticsearch from Smile Elasticsuite, right? Oh no, it's Elasticsuite. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, seems good.
Well, that's good. Finally
we
not
got a shop by. The number of database queries probably related to product price, yeah. So you see there's all those price information, there's also this relation to configurable products. And WP options. This one raises a bell for me because I've seen this one before. And I know what it is. It's probably Fishbeak WordPress integration module. And that one is actually having some very weird issue in it. It flashes your cache all the time. Like, actually not the cache, sorry. It writes to the database on every single page load. I don't know if I'm gonna see this query here, but let's see. Update. No, it doesn't happen here. But I've seen stores where those I know where it happens. When you don't have something configured in WordPress, it writes on every single page load in Magento to the WordPress database to configure URL of Magento store. So if you have a multi-store with multiple domain names, it picks up only one of them, and if you go into another domain, it checks that domain doesn't match and it tries to update the record on WordPress database again. So this is the thing that happens here. They use this Fishbeak extension, but here I don't see this database operation itself, but there is definitely something going on. Probably this is the one or not. It's Facebook. Facebook share does some database operation? Why? Oh. This is quite interesting. Is it... okay. Rewards behavior. So this is kind of weird. You know, like if you share something, it's probably gonna show you how much
you get reward points,
how much you will get a discount on the store if you share something on Facebook. But yeah, this query doesn't look like a good one because it actually loads all coupon codes in your Magento database for specific rule. Let's see. Or it's a primary coupon. Wait a moment. Probably not. Not that bad query, but why it's so slow then? This is weird. Now let's see. Sorry. Let's see here. Sales rule. Oh, it's 4 times. Could be possible actually it happens for every single sales rule. I don't know how many sales rules they have, but could be possible that they have 4. And they try to load the sales rule coupon code for something. And then they run this query. Oh yeah. And this one doesn't look good either. Like it's 5 times this query as well. So I think there is load and loop in this mirror suite extension. Okay, so they try to load all of the sales rules. Okay, that's a problem, but I don't see any estimates here. You know, like I don't see on the page itself, I don't see, you know, like, hey, what is the quantity in order to run it? And as well, like, this query could be reasonable if you are a logged in customer and you are on a checkout page or something, but you're on a category page, and yeah, it looks a little bit excessive. Maybe they should have used in this extension some kind of materialized index or something in order to store information how much you will earn when you buy something or share something online. It doesn't look like it's a good way to do a calculation like that on a view of the category page. Okay, what else do we have here? Let's see in this blob what's happening here. Oh, okay. The cache is not loaded for translations? Or what?
Yeah, you can switch between English and Spanish there on the top left.
Yeah, let's just profile it for a good measure one more time, because like I already visited that category page before. So weird, I receive information that translation cache is not loaded. This one looks weird. Because like, yeah, apply custom design and then somehow like it reloads all the translation files. This is kind of heavy. Looks like it actually not using cache here. Let's see one more time. Does it improve? So where was it? Here, still here. So there is translations are uncached. I never seen this behavior before in Magento. I don't know what invokes it. You know, like why it happens here. Maybe I never tried this custom design functionality of Magento itself. But this one looks weird. Like there's really should be usage of the cache of translation files. Load layout before again. Swissup Zim editor. It uses view configuration files uncached as well. You can see it here. You can see a problem here. So it again triggers a lot of file system calls. So this is not efficient. So this is actually all the bootstrap process. Let's see what else here. So here is a standard Magento layout. It doesn't look.
What was the Swissup? What was uncached there in Swissup?
View configuration. So this is uncached in Magento core, but usually like this is a common problem when you try to retrieve the image dimensions or something like that. But here they also use some kind of variables inside of the custom Zim module or something like that, like adding a custom page class name on a before layout load itself. So there is something happening there. Like, and all the initialization process takes some time because of that as well. So this is a small blob, and let's take a look at the bigger one with the actual rendering of the category page, right? So here products. This is our alert navigation building itself. It takes 200 milliseconds. It's not too much. However, the rendering of the product list takes quite a lot of time, and as I mentioned before, this is actually the standard Magento issue with prices being calculated dynamically and not taken from the price index. Here, what we have else here in the bottom here, We have just rendering of the layered view. Do we have something here? Yeah, Swissup again. Some kind of loading loop for filters. So there is this part related to the CO URLs. It's probably doing some kind of database operation to look up the URL of every single filter value or something like that. Again, Swissup, I'm not sure if they are actually using it. Let's see. Do they have CO URLs here? Let's see here. No, actually, I don't see anything here. Or Rio Fabricante Calza. Okay. It looks like. Okay. So let's profile this page just to see if there's any kind of URL lookup or something like that.
What's your favorite pair of boots on this page?
Oh, it's interesting. Let's scroll down. I like something like that.
Like the lighter tan color?
Yeah.
Or whiskey color.
Oh, you remind me. Yesterday, I opened in the evening. I opened nice Scotch whiskey. So single malt from Scottish Isle, where yeah, it's called Ardbeg. It was very nice experience. Yeah, whiskey. It's kind of nice to have sometime on Saturday evening.
Man, I haven't had a drink since probably February.
Okay.
I just don't keep anything at home, and we would go out for dinner on Saturdays. I would have a drink at dinner, and that was really it. But just haven't gone out, so I haven't had anything to drink since then.
Yeah, so looks like the filtered page is not an issue either. So mostly, biggest issue is actually the CO URL resolution itself. Like there is no issues I see right now with Smile Elasticsuite. So there is not too much queries to Elasticsearch. But the biggest issues are actually price resolution here, and probably some of these ones too. And yeah, the problem with the CO URL resolution. Let's go into the product page. Rio Grande para Mujer. Okay, so this is woman's shoe. Looks kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And it looks a little bit like roses or something like that, you know, like with this texture. Okay, let's profile this page. Oh yeah, accidentally I pressed on adding item to wish list.
Yeah, I was wondering why that message was there.
Yeah. Hitbox is, I think, too large for the wishlist button. There is some huge collectors of their shoes, you see, frequently bought together. Like, if you buy this shoe, you have to buy all the others too.
Are these dress shoes for like dancing and special occasions, or some of them?
Botas rodeo, so I think it's for rodeo.
So like rodeo.
Yeah.
It's like if you were in the rodeo.
Yeah, so you go out to watch some rodeo, right? And you have to wear some nice shoes to show off that you are, in this culture and so on. So probably, and also, like if you are wealthy enough, you need to have new shoe for every rodeo, right? So that's where was it? So this is the product page. So there's quite a lot of queries. I can tell for sure. So this is the standard Magento issue with the bundle products. Like bundle selection like 14 times happens. A standard thing with super products as well. Yeah, this is interesting. This one is weird. Like, I'm not yet a customer, but it tries to load the customer 9 times. So I think there is some code that doesn't check if customer is actually logged in and just tries to load the customer, but the customer doesn't exist, so it tries to load it again and again and again, but customer doesn't exist, so it loads it constantly. And like all the 9 calls trigger a load of data from the database where the customer entity ID is null, actually. So this is kind of weird. Then we have this mirror suite extension that introduces some database queries. Then someone tries again to load 6 times a customer name when there is no customer, right? I'm not registered there, so I didn't bought anything yet, so why do you do this query?
So that's 15 total times?
Yeah, I think it's customer name is 6 times, the customer... yeah, 15 times. I didn't check how much it was original query, so you need to see 15 additional queries that could have been just avoided at all. I think the whole code block that was happening there. But in general, like, I don't see here repetitive pattern. I see just that there is a lot of small pieces of code that takes a lot of time. So for instance, this share button takes some time, like 250 milliseconds to render. Then there is this form. This is probably add to cart form, right? Yeah, it's add to cart form that takes 160. So why share button takes almost the same time as rendering add to cart button when you have all the options of the product shown, right? It looks a little bit inefficient algorithm in this button rendering process. Then tabs probably just render reviews. Yeah, the review and review form, the attributes. Yeah, so this is a standard Magento. And here we have view counter. What? Do we want to show counter on product pages? Like, it's Magento, right? It's Magento product view counter. What the heck? I never seen this one before. View counter. And it's under Magento namespace. Where it's coming from? Yeah, there's not much information here. But like, you see there is a lot of Redis calls. This is kind of tough. And here's again a lot of Redis calls. And it all finishes up with Loading composer after loader again. Yeah. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what is happening here. Maybe it's what the Magento version are they using?
I'm not sure. Let's see if I still have it open. Well, they're on PHP 7.4, so
It's 2.4, yeah?
yeah. Let me see if I can. Yeah, 2.4.
So this is probably what comes with 2.4 because I've never seen this one before. Could be a new core performance issue. Like here it looks quite weird, you know, like to have all these Redis calls. Like it doesn't make sense. Like why do you have Redis calls on the product page? Just to have this product view counter to retrieve the current product data. Or I have suspicions that I probably know what they're doing there. Like there's so much about dry and solid principles in Magento core that they don't want to reuse the same objects that they've loaded before, so they just decided to use cache for that. Maybe that's the problem there. So instead of using the already loaded product model, they try actually to load it again. And you know, like then you have this image collect all the images. Like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, what do we have else here? So this is probably gonna be our first 2.4.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned before we started the looking at the store about Redis stuff, and I was just searching for 2.4 known issues to see if there's anything viewed in Redis, and it says there's patches for Magento Commerce Cloud for 233, 234 for Redis and high CPU.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that? Is that what?
Yeah, it's I don't think it's related to this one. So this one is
No. I was just wondering if that was related to what you were talking about working on with Rust.
yeah. The thing about the Redis itself, like, how can you solve higher CPU on a PHP side? Like, yeah, you can optimize the client itself, but you can only optimize it to a specific degree. Like, if you still connect to the Redis that is in another part, Redis itself is single-threaded, unless you set up, you know, like proper cluster of Redis nodes. Yeah, you will have an issue, and also then you also need to process redirects to another cluster node on the Redis itself. So yeah, it's much more easier when you process all the atomicity of the operations and cache tag invalidation and so on if you process it on the same place where you actually store the data, because then you can organize proper data structures to look it up and clear it up, and you don't need to do it all on client side because there's always latency.
So this says Redis issues for Magento Commerce Cloud and its patches, but they're not patching Redis.
No,
they're patching Magento. So are they making patches for this only available to Commerce Cloud customers and not to the open source customers who are also affected by it?
Could be possible, like there is some special Commerce Cloud Redis client or something like that they were using. But also I've heard something about Redis patches in community as well. So I think probably they just have this page as a troubleshooting guide for Commerce Cloud.
Oh, for
Commerce Cloud.
But maybe those patches came from community and they making them available to Commerce Cloud customers. Like, hey, look at this thing we did for you.
It could be possible, but in general, like I've spend a lot of time with a cache locking issue in Magento core in order to learn about the implementation of the Redis client itself and how Magento stores the data into the Redis itself. So after I learned all of this stuff, yeah, the biggest problem is that there is a disconnect between, like how you write the data, because you write the data in multiple steps. Like you don't write it as a single operation. So the Redis accepts a write to a hash map, and then it accepts a write to another hash map, and so on. So that's gonna be always a problem, because someone else might also write the data, and then you have this issue with inconsistency. Because I've seen a lot of times also customers occasionally like having an issue with the cache because two processes wrote something concurrently to the cache service, and while one process was actually flashing the data, actually just recently I think I was speaking with some guy in community chat that was asking me about locking, and that their get lock method on a database locking mechanism was not working in RDS clustered environment, and that raised right away concerns from me, like why he's not using Zookeeper as a locking backend.
Oh, that's a cron lock, wasn't it?
No.
Consumer locks
it's about the cache lock. So there is this lock service that Magento uses, and you can configure it in your environment. Like by default, when you install Magento, it's using MySQL get lock method, because usually when you set up Magento, you have one single MySQL instance and you connect to it, so you don't experience race conditions on locks, because there's only one person who can have a lock authority. But when you have a cluster of MySQL nodes with a lot of replicas, and you have one main instance, and when you connect to the replica and you try to get a lock on the replica, since some version of RDS update, they started to show an error if you try to obtain a lock on a read replica. So now he was asking like why it's happening. But before he just was like, there is cluster of nodes. So whoever connects to a read node and tries to acquire a lock on this read node, all the other read nodes are not aware about this lock, because it's only specific to this specific read node. So if someone flushes the cache, like everyone is gonna try to write to it. And then it doesn't matter if Magento using locking or not, it's just gonna happen. Like there's gonna happen a race condition when the cache data is gonna get corrupted, and basically the website can go down because someone wrote a cache record, another one removed cache record, someone wrote, someone removed, someone wrote, someone removed, and someone removed cache tags, and you don't know who was the last one, right? Because you don't have a possibility to control this concurrency with locks. And this was a real problem that I was trying to solve with introducing the locks in my pull request to use proper backend, because before it was even worse. Because before Magento was using config cache-based lock for the config cache, right? So you can imagine it was not working very well either. So I replaced it with a proper one, but people still don't configure locking properly, and I can understand them why, because like installing Zookeeper just to manage your logs looks like an overkill, because Zookeeper is a huge application itself that allows you to manage all of your microservices basically. So you can supervise them through a Zookeeper, and that's why you have a locking possibility over there, because someone wants to acquire a lock with a specific name to do it. So yeah, this is always gonna be a problem itself. Or we can write a microservice in Rust that will provide very easy looking functionality for Magento. But in general, I try to, when I work with the customers, like that experience those problems, I try to move the part that relies on locking into a microservice that can resolve locking internally between multiple threads. So it's possible to do it on system level. So you can use internal types available to you that are atomic integers and so on in order to resolve a lock without actually using a lock. Or by using some kind of a locking based on specific records. Like for instance, in MSI, you just lock a source item when you update the quantity, but you do it for nanosecond, not millisecond on a microservice level. So you don't have to ask MySQL, hey, can you log for me this database record? Then in PHP, you try to update the record, and then you commit the transaction, then log gets released. So it means that during this time till you communicate with MySQL, do something in PHP, and then release this log, there is a lot of other PHP clients that want to do the same. And then you have a log contention on MySQL server. So the same gonna happen with database logs as well. Like as soon as you try to solve concurrency with locking, you're gonna have log contention anyway. Like you should try to avoid locking at all costs. So introduce a scalable solution that is not relying on exclusive access to a resource. And this is something very interesting to work on when you have customers like that are willing to do it, because they're plateauing in particular area and they want to, like go beyond in performance. So here is a composer JSON file. This is interesting. Like, why? Another issue here with Swissup. So it seems like Swissup, they just provide some kind of basic theme that you can edit, right? And I think that, like, yeah, let's take a look at Swissup.
It's 41 Magento 2 extensions. They have themes, extensions.
Argento, okay. Apply, okay, so it kind of provides you a possibility to edit your theme within Magento itself. I don't know which one they use, probably either Argento or this one. Okay, how to install it. If you're, okay. Marketplace, or use it directly from our repository. Okay. Argento theme, do we have a price for this one? Like, it's interesting to know how much people actually pay for this one. So yeah, they pay like $100 and $25 per month for support and updates. So like you buy it once, but then you pay some amount per month. So I'm not sure it really worth it than actually just using.
Oh my god, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They must have 40 Swissup extensions.
Yeah, so like it's $90 one time, but then they charge $25 per month. So given like you're running a store, like, yeah, if you want to be compatible with the recent Magento version, you have to buy this package. Like it looks like not required, but in the end it actually required if you want to work with them, right? So let's see what is the yearly cost itself, like 25 by 20. So like you.
Oh, I was wrong. There's over 60 Swissup extensions in here.
Okay.
No, I mean installed in the store.
Okay. That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's all-time high.
yeah, and it's good value if you can consider it like from point of view of functionality, but the problem is when functionality is not done in the right way, it actually backfires from different places, like all those page speed optimizations, all those SEO URL resolvers, all those things, like they will cost you more in lost revenue in the end, because your server will not be capable, or like lost revenue on Mojo, but more costs of your server if you are actually paying for your hosting resources yourself. And this is actually majority of Magento merchants, right? So like it looks cheap on paper, but in the end it's not. And if you really want to have something good, like there is a lot of alternatives that are open source from point of view of the theme. Like there is nice alpaca theme that is focused on accessibility. So they put a lot of effort, like the guys from Snowdog built alpaca theme. There's a lot of themes available that are open source, that are good, like. And why open source themes are good? Because everyone can see their code, and incentive of using open source theme over commercial theme is not set of features, but the maintainability of the theme itself. So how you can customize it, how you can build upon it. Like commercial themes, they're good, but it just from my experience since 2007, when I started writing Magento code myself for a core of Magento itself, right? Since that time, I haven't seen yet a commercial theme that really took into account, like all the aspects of efficiency. Like they just focus on features. Like, hey, our competitor has these features. Yeah. Let's put it into our theme. Hey, another competitor has this feature. Let's put it in the theme. No one cares about the efficiency of those features or how to properly implement them. And you usually, when you buy like something that tells, hey, we bundle like 20 extensions that are worth like $1,000 into we bundle it with our theme, like it's a good value. It might look like a good value, but you don't need all those functionalities, and they come with a huge cost of computational power on your service.
It looks like they just, when you installed the theme, like all those extensions just flooded in with it, whether you want them or not, you're using them or not. They're all there. They're all enabled.
It's a good selling point for a theme, but like it means that the theme is not functional without them. Or I hope it's functional, but I suspect that usually if you have a theme that has all of this extension and custom functionalities, usually developers don't isolate those functionalities very well. So if we take a look at the file locations, I think, yeah, I don't see the file locations, but I also suspect like they install the theme in some interesting ways. Let's see. So, okay. Okay, well, let's go to another page.
We did home, we did category, we did product.
Let's add to cart, right? So I'm enabling this never forgiving functionality of Blackfire that will record every single dynamic call. So let's just refresh the product page and see what happens. I suspect we will see some bunch of ajax calls here. Oh, okay. I think there is apart from actual issues with the backend itself, like with the database usage, there's a lot of dynamic calls that could have been avoided at all. Like why do you have separate call for rewards information or something like that? You can just render it right away on a page. Easy tabs, like probably every single tab here is loaded through Ajax. Yeah, you see. However, it's already rendered on a page, but it still like does those Ajax calls. So this is probably something that comes with this Swissup theme. Like, let's add to the shopping cart. Okay, the product is in the shopping cart. Yeah, there's so many calls already. Good thing that we are not redirected to the shopping cart page. You remember last week we had this issue with the customers that you were redirected right away to the shopping cart page, so you didn't stay on a product page. You were unable to, like look at all the upsells and so on. In this case, like it's done right. Like you have mini cart being updated, so it's standard Magento behavior. Let's proceed to the purchase, and it's more visible for a customer, like proceed to the purchase and click on view shopping cart. And here we actually have kind of a lot of reloads. I think it's one-step checkout, right? No, it's some kind of secure. Oh, okay. Okay, so Swissup also comes with own one-step checkout clone implementation, right? So let's look at it again. Let's refresh the page. Look how much things are reloaded multiple times. So I already saw like they loaded something and then they reloaded it again. So there's definitely some issues with JavaScript. What I know for sure about one-step checkout, at least, like if you buy this extension separately, I'm not sponsored by them. I just know that they're very careful with JavaScript and they try to minimize number of Ajax calls, because it's very important. Like if you have one step, you want to show all the data as soon as possible. You don't want to, like do a waterfall of Ajax requests in order to load, like every single field. So let's stop and let's see what's going on in this one. So we see there's a lot of them. So these easy tabs, like it costs at least 1 second to load this page from dynamic backend. This is the time that would have been spent on a server. Like during this 1 second, it means that FPM node is not available to process other requests, right? So instead of processing other requests, it just renders this small piece of Ajax request that renders on the product page, while this FPM node could process someone adding product to the shopping cart, right? So this is very important to reduce number of Ajax calls. A lot of people think like, hey, we reduce our load time by moving something to the Ajax request, but in the end, it's better just to optimize the algorithm itself to minimize number of dynamic operations you do per entity and group them together, then actually just decide, hey, I'm just gonna request from the client side this part from a server, because in the end you saturate your server, right? Is it the right term? You
yeah, you can say that.
You oversaturate your server with Ajax calls that could have been spent on something more valuable. Okay, and there is a lot of easy tabs. Review list. This one is probably okay. I think it happens when you click on review. Elasticsuite tracker, so it's to track the product views. This one is questionable because I think sometimes it makes sense from elasticsuite to disable it because it records product view counts in order to use it later on. If you use it later on, if you don't use this functionality, just disable it because it's just redundant call that you don't need. Then we have a secure checkout page. So this is the first load. It's 4 seconds. 4 seconds to load the checkout page. Looks quite a lot. Let's look at the timeline. I think there is something going on. Oh no. This is painful. Like, this is Braintree extension, right? This is an official Braintree extension. Sorry, I wanted to look at the HTTP calls. And it's a call to the same endpoint 5 times. So basically, like, you're relying on a third-party service and to receive back a client token. And client token is something that you can do it once for a client session. Like, you don't need to do it for every single.
Wait. Why is that going to the sandbox? API.sandbox.braintree.
Do they even have Braintree available on their store? I think no. They just use PayPal Express checkout. So
okay.
So it's probably something like they have Braintree enabled. So this is the thing, you know, like
that's just by default.
Yeah, so
it's enabled.
I think what they need to do, if they don't use Braintree, they just need to disable it, because I remember I was working on a couple of projects and I was really confused with the implementation of the extension of Braintree, because it does a lot of HTTP calls. I think we did it even together with one of during our training session or something, when we were discovering like they were doing HTTP calls where they were not supposed to do HTTP calls, and like it's definitely an abuse of Braintree API. Like, if you try to receive a client token for every single movement of your customer or every single UI element, like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's enabled. The PayPal Braintree's extension is enabled in their stores, probably enabled in all these Magento stores, making call outs to the sandbox.
Yeah, like, and given like it's sandbox is not production service of PayPal.
No, it's gonna be even slower.
So it's gonna be very slow. Like, we see like this slow response time. So it means like every single merchant out there, like if you're not using like Braintree payment method, just don't enable it. Probably like when you enable PayPal or something like that, like it just switches on Braintree.
Switches them all on, maybe.
Yeah, and maybe you can do it, but you can remove Braintree itself, or maybe if you have Braintree and you just decide to use only PayPal Express from Braintree, I think you can use it, right? To use Braintree, to use PayPal.
I'm not sure, but I think we've seen this Braintree thing before, going to the sandbox.
Yeah, so
somebody had it on. I don't know if it's on by default or how that happens. Maybe like you said, when you turn on PayPal Express, Braintree comes on with it.
You see, so there is what it shows me. It shows me like Apple Pay, it tries to receive a client token. For Google Pay, it tries to receive a client token. For Venmo, it tries to receive a client token. For ACH, I don't know what kind of payment method it is, but
oh, ACH. ACH is when I said we can transfer between banks 1 day or 3 days, and it's $3 or $10 from my bank, for example. That's ACH. Or payroll. Payroll's done here in the US.
Those kind of HTTP requests can easily get you banned on Braintree, you know, like for abusing their sandbox API, because if you have a Black Friday and you have a lot of customers who visit your checkout page, like your checkout page will never show up because Braintree will rate limit your calls and it will make it even slower. So yeah, this is just, I don't think like it's a problem with developers of the store. It's a problem with developers of Braintree extension. Like it should be much more easier to, like.
That's an admin usability UI problem, I think.
Not only like maybe they tried to use it, like, but it should be clear, like there's no payment methods enabled right now, right? From Braintree. Let's inspect actually this element. Let's see what's going on there. So get payment acceptance mark, payment method. What is the code of the payment method? PayPal Express. So this is not Braintree. It's pure PayPal Express implementation. Países Bajos. Oh, it's actually delivers to the Netherlands. Maybe if I choose Mexico, maybe there's gonna be different payment options. Let's see. No, the same. Let's choose something that I know, like Ciudad de Mexico, maybe.
I only see in their extensions PayPal Braintree and PayPal Braintree GraphQL. I don't actually see a PayPal Express.
Or maybe, wait a moment. I think at some point Magento started to bundle a Braintree together with their releases.
Yeah, they did. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's just on by default.
Yeah.
Because it's a bundled extension.
Yeah, and it's poorly written bundled extension. So I definitely don't see in HTML here, I don't see any other payment method. So basically it tries to call the API, however the extension itself, like not the extension, but the payment method itself maybe is not enabled at all. It just tries to check it for every single one without, like if there is no merchant code or something specified in the configuration, why you are making calls? It just doesn't make sense. Or maybe it has some merchant code specified. Let's take a look. Yeah, there is something like merchants and the token of the merchant, but this is sandbox.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem like they put some information in for sandbox credentials. Maybe they did and they just forgot about it, and now it's...
Yeah, this is just bad.
Yeah, I'll have to ask the store owner about that one.
Because this one slows down your initial page load of the checkout page. It's really huge one. Because the rest of the things are not standing out much. Like, yeah, there is an issue with this minifying and JavaScript minifying on checkout page. Again, we've talked about it when we were profiling homepage about this Swissup page speed. That doesn't make sense to minify your page output. But this one is pure backend issue, like you just waiting for a failure to start. Imagine like Braintree sandbox API goes down. And the whole your checkout page goes down with it, because like you wait like for 30 seconds to receive back a response, because 30 seconds is actually the default timeout on PHP on Coral. So you like wait for 30 seconds, nothing happens. The customer is probably already like leaving your website at that point and forgetting about placing a purchase. So this is very risky. And given that, like, it doesn't even make sense to have this one from point of view of the payment provider. It doesn't make sense to have this information being acquired on viewing of the checkout page, because you are viewing the checkout page. You don't need yet a token because customer might not have chosen your payment method yet. And it also could be an issue with the privacy as well, because I think if you want to acquire some kind of a token or something, you have to give some piece of customer information. And if a customer didn't choose Braintree specifically to pay for this order, why you are sending this customer information to your servers, right? So this is also questionable from that area as well, apart from, like you just slow down your pages a lot. So it's good idea like to request a token when customer presses, hey, I want to pay with this payment method. Just do an ajax call, receive a token for this customer, store it in his browser cache or something, like if he does it multiple times, refreshes the window, so you don't have to do it multiple times, and then just redirect a customer to a third party, or like open iframe or whatever you are using for payments. It doesn't make sense at all to just protect yourself and do a call to third party service and break your checkout, because I think it's a good practice if the payment method is not available, just to show it that you cannot contact the service when you select this payment method, not when you show the checkout page, because if you show a checkout page and you don't know at that point if service is up or down, you have to wait till you get a timeout from the API. And while you're waiting the timeout from the API, you cannot show a checkout page, customer is not gonna be happy. So it's just, maybe I'm just too much involved in projects where it's more important, like to have better customer experience than, like just delivering features. But for me, it's more important, like to see that, hey, I want to sell products to this customer. I didn't want to have him frustrated and just forget about all the products he added to cart and decided to proceed to checkout. And
you see anything else here in checkout?
On checkout page, no. Like it's definitely Braintree is the biggest contributor here. Like, because I was right away like this load time for a checkout page, it's a lot. So and now I understand why it's happening. So, and then yeah, as I said before, there's a lot of ajax calls, and I think there's at least 3 times they are invoking customer section load. That shouldn't happen. Like, if you update some piece of information, like you don't want to have this amount of customer section load, you want to have one. I don't know if it's a Magento issue itself, or maybe the extension has some hook that forces customer section load after some data update. I've seen pure Magento stores based on just pure Magento without extensions that modify this part, and usually it works very well. But when I see this amount of customer section load, it means there is some kind of checksums doesn't match, like when the version of the customer data is different in the browser, and then there is too much requests to this data, and then there is a lot of ajax calls, because there's a lot of things like this one takes 600 milliseconds, this one takes 1 second, and let me guess, like if I open this 1 second, I will see also this HTTP call to Braintree extension. Let's just check. Seems like not. No call to Braintree. Okay. Redis cache, Redis session logs. So this is something that happens when you have too many ajax calls to a backend. So in other issue with ajax calls, I think IntegerNet wrote some extensions that allows you to unblock logs, but also you can just specify disable logs in Redis session configuration as well. in order to avoid these slowdowns.
Yes. We recommend that.
Yeah, here it's not enabled. So yeah, in general, I think that's all about this project, and I think customers have a lot of valuable inputs because I think we found some interesting items here.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to them for using elasticsuite.
Yeah.
We've always recommended it and expected to find Shopify, and we're pleasantly surprised to find elasticsuite.
Yeah, this is a huge shout out to them, definitely. since it,
maybe they've been watching the show.
Yeah, but yeah, I understand decisions about like using a theme that seems like nice offer, but really consider stripping it out. See if removing modules break anything, like the modules that have performance issues. If you don't use those modules, it's always better disable them because they can affect your end user experience, right? So this page speed part of Swissup extension, this your CO URL, I think it doesn't make sense to have CO URLs on filters when you are using Elasticsuite because those URLs are built differently in Elasticsuite than in Magento, so it doesn't make sense. And then there is this thing with, what else did I see there? A bunch of stuff, right?
There's this, yeah. So there's the page speed optimizer. That's the Swissup switch to Magepack. There was lazy loading images problem. The file get contents to the admin path through the WYSIWYG. That's also the theme issue.
Yeah, and imagine if you're actually blocking admin panel to specific IP addresses only. Like, that's going to be fun to debug.
We got the usual load in the loop with configurable product prices.
Yeah, it's core issue.
WP options, you mentioned a bug with that. I don't know if it's present in here, but if you have multiple domains, you can have rights to the database on every request.
Yeah, this is a Fishpig WordPress integration module. But yeah, I didn't see this query anywhere else to stand out, so I think maybe they're lucky and they have best case scenario of there, or maybe Fishpig extension developer finally fixed it. So
MST rewards, we were wondering if they were loading all the sales rules, although I saw a different sales rule count. I saw one page had like 7 calls for that, another page had 4.
Could be possible on categories or something like that. Maybe they do some filters, or maybe they have a relation to the current page or something like that.
Translations were uncached.
Yeah.
Did we figure out why?
We didn't figure out why. So it's
Swissup viewed configuration was uncached.
Yeah.
Customer load 15 times. That was on the product view page, I think.
Yeah, and I didn't find where it happens because I just saw a query, and it was not significant enough from point of view of time to show up in a timeline view because there was other issues that were more time consuming. So you can debug those issues mostly when you fix one issue, or like comment out part of the code and then dive deep, or like when you specifically like put a breakpoint or whatever and debug and see what calls those loads. But that one looked very strange, especially from point of view of cacheable content. When you are on a product page, you don't want to access any of the customer data on the product page itself. You want to move this part into some kind of hole punched dynamic block that gets loaded through customer section load. You don't want to use this in the part of the product rendering page because the product page gets cached by varnish. Category page gets cached by varnish. You don't want to cache customer specific data to other users to see, right? So it's a good rule to exclude any dynamic blocks from the pages that are cacheable.
Maybe we found a new 2.4 core bug with the product view counter.
Yeah, this one looked very weird.
Easy Tabs was doing a checkout ajax call when the page data was already there.
Oh yeah, a lot of ajax calls. Ajax calls were all over the place, and it makes it very annoying for me, knowing that this time could be spent on actually doing something valuable server side.
The elasticsuite page tracker.
Yeah, it's a small issue, but it makes sense to disable if you are not using any kind of statistics from elasticsuite.
And then that Braintree call going to the sandbox.
Yeah.
That's got to get disabled, Braintree.
Yeah.
And I think that was it. Just the minify, the Swissup, again, minifying pages when it didn't need to. And disable locks in the Redis session configuration, which is something we can do for them. So.
Yeah. And Braintree, I think, was one of the biggest surprises today because it affects every single checkout page. Like it just adds randomness to the page performance because like Sandbox API is completely unreliable. And it takes a random time to do requests. And there is at least 7 or 8, right? So it's...
Yeah. All those tokens. Okay. Yeah. Good show. Lots of good stuff. They'll be happy. And maybe I'll order a pair of boots. I can't see myself wearing them, but I do think they're cool. But
yeah. As soon as there is some rodeos, right? So you can wear those shoes to rodeos, like when everyone goes back to normal. It should be fun.
I think there's some rodeo stuff going around. Like going on at maybe the county fairs.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen some stuff like that where they're doing, but it's not like a really full blown rodeo. But I think there are once in a while at like the big indoor farm shows, and they'll do stuff like that. But it's not like professional level, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everyone, thank you very much for joining and watching this interesting roller coaster of performance issues. Thank very much for Blackfire for sponsoring us and providing us with this amazing access to their full-featured Magento profiler for profiling customers on this show. So thanks and big shout out to them. And thanks to Magemojo for providing us with endless list of customers with performance issues.
You can thank Magento extension vendors for that one.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, all the Magento extension vendors. You are so amazing.
For giving us material.
Yeah, give us more material. No, we're joking. We want to review better performing shops like last episode with the first in coffee, right? That was amazing.
Yeah, first in coffee. That was Laura Folco.
Yeah,
she's done a pretty good job. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I'll see you next episode.
See you all next episode. Till the next time. Bye.